What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the MLB Swing for the Fences show here on the Run for Your Sports YouTube channel. It's a Sunday Struggle Bus show with Third and Schlong. Bryce, I know, we're here on Sunday morning. We've been in the Discord talking ball for like 3 hours already. You were up early as well. I've generally done a pretty good job of taking it easy on Saturday nights this baseball season, but listen, UFC 301 plus Wolves and Nuggets had me putting a few back yesterday, so we are riding the struggle bus a little bit this morning. I know you're feeling the same way, getting ready for your big trip to Italy and your wedding, of course. But we're here, and listen, we're excited for this show. How you doing on this Sunday morning, Bryce?
I could be better. Got after it a bit last night, but we've been digging into the slate pretty deep here, and I think we have some really solid plays. We've been talking a bunch in the Discord before the show, so kind of ready for the slate and get some NASCAR today as well.
Yeah, I'll leave the NASCAR to you. This is going to be one of those days in the baseball Discord, Bryce, where either the messages are going to be coming fast and furious. It's going to either be a party or could be like a very silent Discord today as well if things don't work out, because we're all riding together. Yeah,
Tottenham has a huge game as well starting soon. So
Liverpool Tottenham, right? In half an hour here. Yeah,
I would likely be having a couple drinks to cure this hangover post show.
I'm also waiting till after the show to crack the first one, but it won't be long after we get off the air that we'll be back to it. Awesome day of sports. Happy for you all to join us here on Sunday morning. We love doing these shows. Love you guys watching it. And hit the like button if you're here on Sunday morning. We do appreciate it. And with that, let's jump into the show. We got 10 games to talk about. We'll try not to spend the whole hour on the first game of the day, but we are going to talk about this one in depth. Washington Nationals, Toronto Blue Jays. We got Mackenzie Gore, one of my favorite kind of breakout pitchers on the year. Kind of still waiting on it a little bit. He's been good, Bryce, but I know there's still more in there. Part of the problem, last three opponents at Texas, Dodgers, Houston. Now, he's been good or decent in those three starts, but I think there's more in the tank for Mackenzie Gore. And then he will go opposite the fat man, Mr. Alek Manoah, making his return to the big leagues. If you're new to MLB DFS, I'm sure some of you are. He was I think he finished third in Cy Young voting in 2022. And then last year just completely imploded to the point where they didn't even send him down to minor leagues. They sent him all the way down to the spring training complex. Didn't pitch much at all last year, struggled when he did. And then this year, started the year in the minors and really, really struggled through most of the minor league season so far. Now, he did have a big outing in his last minor league appearance where he struck out 12 guys, which is the only thing really worrying me at all about Manoah. But I think by far the most likely thing is he's not going to be any good. The Blue Jays weren't even planning to have him start this game. Yariel Rodriguez got injured early in the week. So they did make the call to Manoah. And we kind of what we were alluding to earlier, Manoah has a lot of weaknesses, but the biggest one is he can't hold runners on base at all. Allowed, I think, 15 steals in 40 innings last year when he pitched in the big leagues, and then 9 and 19 innings at AAA this year. And Washington likes to run more than any other team in the league. We don't have their lineup yet, but we've been firing.
Just got the lineup.
Did we get it?
Yeah, we just got it. Young is leading off, so
they know.
I mean, he's going to be running if he gets on.
So can you read the lineup to me if you have it?
It's basically as expected, but Young leading off instead of Alex Call being in the team. So it's Young, Abrams, Garcia, Senzel, Winker, Menses, Ruiz, Rosario, Lipscomb.
Yeah. So the things that we've been betting are the stolen base props now. it seems like, I don't know what, like 20% of the Discord seems to have DraftKings same game parlays available for stolen bases. Like 80% of us don't. If you do have those, honestly, this is the first time I've mentioned this all season, doing shows every day. I think it's worth SGPing these stolen base props. Me and Bryce can't do it. Most people probably can't. But if you do have them available, Young, Abrams, Garcia, Winker, Lipscomb, and maybe Senzel as well, I think are all going to run if they get a chance against Manoah, who they should get a chance against. I do think the most likely thing is he's one of the worst pitchers in baseball right now. So we are all in, or at least I am all in on the Nationals today, betting wise, fantasy wise, DFS. And, if Manoah shows up and owns us, we'll move on to the next one. But I'm making a big stand here on the Nationals every which way I can. I know you're going to be playing at similar, Bryce, long rant for me, but had to do it on one of the best spots I think that we've had on this MLB season. Over to you, Bryce. What do you think for Washington and Toronto?
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. I am a little overexposed on the props, the stolen base props. I basically maxed what I could. I've tailed your stolen base props for a while now, even before I came to RPS, and I got the books pretty good for some of the parlays, which is why I think I'm not.
We got them so good they changed their whole they had to.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's correlated. So if you can parlay them, I definitely would go that route as opposed to betting them singles. But I think they're great as singles as well.
The singles are still good bets too, but
yes,
the correlated parlays are something. I saw too. You can maybe do them on underdogs. Some of you might want to check that. But yeah, we're not just blowing smoke up your asses. This is really a really, really good spot, we think, to bet.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think it's good for DFS as well. I don't really think I'm going to be on many Blue Jays hitters here. I'm just pretty high on Gore, long term. The Blue Jays do have a couple dangerous bats in the lineup, but I don't think it's a very strong lineup personally. I might have a couple stacks, but I will likely be under on the Blue Jays, over on Gore, and significantly over on the Nationals, especially the guys who we are expecting to run here.
Absolutely. Jake, I did mention the 12 strikeouts for Manoah in his last AAA outing. I'm not going to let one single AAA outing outweigh, a year and a half.
He sucks. He's fat as hell.
Yeah, he's bad. We think Nationals doing some damage here. Certainly, we'll have our money behind that. And I don't want to overlook Mackenzie Gore here. I know I mentioned him when I introduced the game, but very, very high on him overall. And I don't know. Are you scared of this Blue Jays lineup? I'm not really.
Not at all. I'm going to be over Gore for sure.
Yeah. Love Mackenzie Gore. A little bit of weather to watch there in Washington. We do think it will be fine, but at least something to keep an eye on. Obviously, almost 2.5 hours before lock. So you'll have to keep an eye on that one. And you'll also have to keep an eye on the next game, Detroit and New York. This game, I think, much more risky than the Nationals game. It looks like rain is definitely in the forecast. Looks like pretty light rain. I think there's a chance they will just play through it, but also a chance that they just abandon this game. Could happen during the show. It's rain's coming. We're just gonna call it in New York. But we'll see. We'll talk about the game as if it plays. Two lefties on the hill: Tarek Skubal, Nestor Cortez. Both these guys have been pretty good on the young season. Cortez did have a little bit of a rough outing against Baltimore last time out. We certainly understand that against one of the best offenses in the league. Skubal has been as advertised this year, Bryce, just game after game, right? Delivering the goods. One of our favorite pitchers to end last year and coming into this year, and he has been no disappointment whatsoever. If this game does play, I'll play Skubal against anybody, right? I don't think, it's not maybe an ideal matchup against the Yankees, but he's good enough to mow down any team. That said, obviously with the weather issues, 10-game slate, I do think if you just kind of want to ignore this game, it's not the worst idea in the world. Even for Skubal, it's kind of a tough matchup. But what are you doing with the Yankees and the Tigers, Bryce?
Weather-wise, I'm going to kind of wait until like closer to lock to see if it gets delayed. If it gets delayed, I'm likely going to be completely off it. If they start on time and whatnot, I'm likely going to be over on both these pitchers. I think it's really low total. Skubal especially has strikeout upside. He's been an RPS darling all year. I think I've been over on him every single time he's pitched this season. Yankees lineup, I mean, they scare you some for power, but, you know, they have a lot of strikeouts in there too. I think he has a ton of upside. I think he's going to go completely unowned with this weather. So I don't think it's the worst gamble if the game starts on time. Likely going to be off hitting here in general. I don't really like playing against Skubal, and you know, Cortez is a pretty solid pitcher, and I really think there are better spots to attack than Detroit. If you do want to play, like, include some one-offs, like, you know, Aaron Judge, especially on FanDuel, I think is too cheap. He's down to like 3.6K there. Like guys like that, I'm fine playing as like one-offs. Don't really want to do any 5-man stacks. I'd consider like some smaller stacks potentially, but likely going to be very under on hitting here, and hope the game plays, because I would love to play some Skubal, to be honest.
I do think you mentioned it already, but I do think this is a classic. If the game starts on time, I think they're just going to they basically essentially decided that they're going to play through the rain, right?
Yes.
It is going to rain during this game if they play it. That much is just essentially a fact. But it is light rain, right? And I think they could, for sure, I think they could potentially play through it. But they're just going to have to decide that. So if it does start in delay in New York, I'm with you. I would get off of this game. I don't think they're going to play the game if it starts in delay. But if they do start on time, I think they will just play through it.
Yeah. If it starts in delay, I'm full fading.
Me too. We have the same approach with the Yankees and the Tigers. Feel pretty confident about that take, even a couple hours here before lock. Next game on the slate, Colorado and Pittsburgh. This game also starts at that 1:35 Eastern time. This game should be fine, good to go too, I think. I think Nationals and Pittsburgh are both going to be safe. Some risk, you do got to monitor it, but I think they should be good to go. Ryan Feltner pitching for the Rockies. I think somewhat of an underrated pitcher. I've been on him some this year when he's been on the road at least. And then Bailey Falter pitching for the Pirates. Not a huge believer in his, but he does get the Colorado Rockies here. And he's 6K flat, so he's got to be in play, right? Any pitcher, a reasonable major league pitcher against the Rockies at 6K, I think deserves consideration. So I kind of like both these pitchers. Don't love the hitters in this game. Where do you stand, Bryce, on Pittsburgh and Colorado?
In terms of Falter, I do think he has upside against this Colorado lineup. I think pretty much every pitcher does. The one worry I have with him is his pitch count. It's not very high. I think 85 looks like his highest on the season. But he got 30 points that game. Like, he does have the upside to get there, especially at 6K. I don't think he's the worst option on this slate, and I'm likely going to be probably around 10% on him. I don't think you need to go down like crazy far on pitching today, but yeah, probably around 10% there. Feltner will likely come in for me around 5%. I don't love targeting this Pirates lineup. I actually like the Pirates bats a bit here, but I don't think they're going to be a massive buy for me. I will be playing some 5-mans with them for sure. I kind of want to get the top of the lineup in here. I think like guys like Brian Reynolds, Hayes, and Cruz have like significantly more upside than the bottom of the lineup. Wouldn't mind like Michael Taylor wrap around. So do like the Pirates a bit. Not really on the Rockies. They are not that cheap. It's a pretty crappy team total. They're out of Colorado. I just think there are better spots to attack today.
Saber has Falter at 5 to 6% ownership. I assume he'll be higher than that. Yeah, I mean, if he really is 5% owned, I think you gotta be over the field on that one if you're playing a bunch of lineups. I think again, I'm not a huge believer in him. Like you said, the pitch count's a concern, but 6K for a pitcher who is pitching pretty well against Colorado, something.
Yeah.
That,
So his he's favored to juiced over 15.5 outs. So he's going to pitch 5 innings at least here, as long as he doesn't do shitty. So I think that's a pretty solid play at 6K actually.
For sure. Especially if you want some of those bigger bats in there. So next game up, LA Angels and the Cleveland Guardians. Another game with moderate weather concerns, but I do think this game will be fine in Cleveland. Should be light rain, if anything. Another game that I kind of like for bats, honestly, on both sides. We got Griffin Canning and Carlos Carrasco pitching, 2 righties, neither of whom I believe in. Carrasco has been, I was going to say he's been better than I expected, but he's got an ERA close to 7 and a WHIP close to 1.7. So he actually hasn't been very good. Got shelled last time out against Houston. He's washed, right? Carlos Carrasco, I think that's very fair to say about him. Not long for this league. Probably won't, frankly, get many more chances to play against him. I just can't imagine him getting too many more starts. Obviously don't love the Angels lineup, but when you get a pitcher this bad and bats this cheap, I do think the Angels make some sense. And I like the Guardians, too, against Griffin Canning. We were stacking against him with Philadelphia last time out. That worked out pretty well. Could have been even better. 5 walks to 1 strikeout over 5 innings. Did give up 4 earned runs. But I like this Nationals lineup. These lefties against Griffin Canning. It's a decent park for lefty power. And you can run a little bit on Canning, too. So I like both these offenses. I'll take a pass on both these pitchers. What about you, Bryce?
Yeah, I think both these pitchers are pretty much dust balls at this point.
Yeah.
I'm in my 150. I don't think I'm going to fully exclude them because I don't really exclude guys, but I don't see myself being over a couple lineups on either one of them. I do like the bats a bit. I agree with you here. I think 5-man stacks are in play. I think 2 and 3-man stacks are in play. The Angels lineup is basically free. Jose Ramirez, and then on Guardians side, they have Florio leading off. Jose Ramirez is obviously one of the highest upside hitters in baseball. Jimenez would be my second favorite play from the Guardians here. As you mentioned, Canning can give up some stolen bases, and he's just a high upside player in general. Likely going to be over on both these offenses in 5-man stacks.
Yeah, our friends over at Ballpark Pal actually rate this game pretty highly in terms of park factors for this game. Higher than you would think, looking at just like the weather, right? Where it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing to notice today is, there's not really any good team totals on the board. No team has a team total over 4.5. So I think these are some of the better plays on the slate, to be honest.
Yeah, we've seen the team totals come down. We talked about these last couple shows, the dead ball. It sucks that it's back in baseball, and we've seen the totals for games, really come down over the last couple of weeks as the markets have adjusted to that, and that's why you see kind of these lower team totals. Well, we were on the Friday night show. It was Friday night baseball. We didn't have a single game over a single team with over a 5 team total. I don't think we have one on this slate either. So we do have to adjust for that, and it's obviously all relative. But I do think we will see runs in this one. And yeah, the more I look at it, man, the Guardians side of this one looks great. The Angels also have one of the worst bullpens in baseball. So yeah, I'm in on the Guardians here. Bunch of offenses I like today, despite the low team totals, pretty much across the board. Let's get to New York Mets and Tampa Bay Rays up next. Luis Severino on the hill for the Mets. Ryan Pepio pitching for the Rays. This one in Tampa. Another low total sitting at 7. Rays are slight favorites. 2 pitchers who I like quite a bit on this slate. Pepio, man, his stuff grades out really, really well, and the results are finally kind of starting to fall in line for him. Pitched a gem last time out against Milwaukee, 7 strikeouts, I was on him some in that game, not as much as I should have been. Was a little bit kicking myself, kind of just realizing Pepio's talent and not taking advantage of it. But he is a pitcher I like quite a bit. I know the Mets lineup doesn't have the most strikeouts in the world, but I'm also not super afraid of that. It is a pretty decent place to pitch in Tampa. So I like Pepio here. And I like Severino quite a bit too. He had a little bit of a bumpy first start, but has been rock solid ever since. Looked good last time out against the Cubs. Took a no-hitter into the 8th inning. 5 strikeouts now, and did throw 101 pitches, but that's not too many where you would be worried about him being tired or fatigued in this start. And I just like picking on this Rays team. I've been doing it, especially with right-handed pitchers, for a while. And I think Severino's got the stuff to kind of run through this lineup. This Rays team, 8 right-handed hitters in there. Severino, his best pitch, you could argue, is his slider. And this Rays team, man, they just, I know not everybody watches as much baseball as I do, but they just wave at the low and away outside slider. Severino, I think he gets ahead of hitters. He throws a lot of strikes. And, man, I really like his chances here. Severino, one of my favorite pitchers on this slate. I think we see a pitcher's duel in this one. Tampa Bay, New York Mets. Your thoughts, Bryce?
Yeah, not really on hitters much here. They would be like 3-man stacks, 2-man stacks, or one-offs. Don't really see myself having many 5-mans here from either side. I'm definitely going to be over on Severino. I mean, I haven't projected it like 5% ownership. Probably going to be around.
That is absolutely insane. He's like,
yeah. I mean, I would guess he comes in higher than that, but especially depending on this weather in New York too, because people are going to want to play those pitchers. So like if they get off the slate, ownership's going to go directly to some of these other guys. I think Pepio has a little more upside, but you're also paying a much higher ownership. I see him around 25% projected. Mm-hmm. So I likely want to be over on both of them. 10 to 15% Severino, probably around 30 to 35% Pepio here. The two of my higher ranked pitchers on the slate. So I'm obviously not going to be on the bats tons, more one-offs and 3-mans here. If I had to pick out some guys, it would be the home run power, like a Rosarena type of guy. Pete Alonso can always hit one out. So those would probably be my favorite hitters from the respective teams if you're a little higher on the bats here than I am.
I'm not on the bats at all. But
yeah, not my favorite play, but want to be over.
Since it's Struggle About Sunday, we're making bold calls on the show. I'll call it here. Severino SP1 on the day when it's all said and done. There's a bold call for you. Seattle and Houston up next. Hunter Brown, Bryce Miller. We know the Hunter Brown. I mean, he had that horrible outing. He's been honestly not that great since then. Better, of course, than he was. And then Bryce Miller, another guy who been very high on this year. He has generally delivered. I don't love going up against Houston, and Houston does have one of the higher team totals, still only 4.2 runs, but it is one of the higher ones on this slate. I don't really want to take bats against Bryce Miller on this slate where there's some offenses that I think are really underrated. And then, I don't know, this Mariners team, this don't ever really seem to put up a big number. So even against Hunter Brown, I'm kind of lukewarm, but I'm not going to pay that $9,400 for Bryce Miller, given some of the other pitchers I like. And then Hunter Brown, no thanks at $6,300. I'm going to be low on this game overall. What about you, Bryce? Houston and Seattle?
I'm seeing Hunter Brown projected like 20% owned, which to me seems way too high. I would much rather take the ownership discount and play someone like Bailey Falter for
I really hope he's ownership
pretty much the same price. Yeah. I'm probably going to be around 5% Hunter Brown. Not really my favorite play, but he does have a bit of upside against the Seattle lineup. He sucks though. He could get there, but I'm going to be significantly under the field on him. Bryce Miller, I 9.4K is just, it's simply too much for him against the Astros team. And because of that, I think he's going to go completely unowned. I will likely, I'm seeing him at like 2 to 3%.
Okay.
I'll probably,
Well,
I'll
I'll go over on
probably,
that. And, yeah.
yeah. I'll probably play,
5. Yeah.
5, maybe 8 if I had to guess. Haven't ran my files yet simply because we had like no lineups coming into this show. Looks like the Astros lineup is pretty much as expected here. I don't mind the Astros. They're just a team that has a lot of upside. I prefer them more as 5-man stacks than one-offs. If you can get Miller out and get to the pen. So I do prefer them to Seattle, but you get really cheap players on Seattle here. Like I think some of these guys are way too cheap, and I think they make for a decent 5-man stack or 3-man stack that saves you some money and lets you get in some of the more expensive players that we'll be talking about, or some more expensive pitchers that we're on.
Yeah, all makes sense to me. That's Seattle and Houston. Next up, another game that I really like from both sides of the Rangers side. It is the Texas Rangers, Kansas City Royals. John Gray pitching for Texas. He's been awesome this year. The game log looks like not as good as it could because he had like a 1.2 inning really weird relief appearance, but I mean, he dominated there. And outside of his first start of the year, John Gray has been awesome. He's another one where his projected ownership is like 3% or something, which seems crazy to me for a good pitcher, 7,300 against, a decent lineup in the Royals, but I'm not exactly like running away from playing pitchers against them. So I like John Gray a lot at 7,300. And I like the Rangers bats a ton here against Daniel Lynch. Thought he could fool us by adding the fourth to his nickname. He's now Daniel Lynch the fourth, but his numbers remain the same. Hasn't pitched well in AAA. He's got a 6 ERA and a 1.8 WHIP down there over 27 innings. Now he's got to come up and pitch against this Rangers lineup, who we know can do a ton of damage. And this is the second really, really good stolen base spot of the day. Daniel Lynch has given up, despite being a lefty. Normally he can't run on lefties, but he's very, very slow to the plate. He's given up a ton of steals in his big league innings, and in the minor leagues this year as well. He's given up, I think 3 or 4 steals in the 27 innings. So yeah, Semien, Adolis Garcia. Do we have the Rangers lineup? I'm not sure. No, yeah. But assuming it is as expected, I think these right-handed power speed combo bats, Semien, Garcia, very high on my list. They're expensive, but plenty of cheap pitchers, including John Gray in this game that you can play. So Rangers, my second, actually maybe my third favorite offense. Nationals, clearly number 1. I like the Guardians. And then I think the Rangers would be third for me. And I think John Gray has a big outing here too. Your thoughts, Bryce, on Rangers and Royals?
So I completely agree on the Rangers side. They're my number 1 offense today. I just think they have a little more power than this Nationals team.
Sure.
Granted, you get the Nationals for way cheaper. Texas is one of the most expensive stacks of the day. So, little bit harder to fit in your teams, but they are my favorite 5-man stacks today. They're my favorite offense in general. Likely want to be over on all these batters. I think, lefties don't scare me against Daniel Lynch. I like this team more with Lowe back in the lineup, and Adolis is always one of the highest upside players. So Semien, these guys aren't cheap, but you have some cheap bats likely at the bottom of the order here to do a little wraparound stack if you'd like to do that. I think Heim's one of the better plays at catcher. So, I'm kind of hoping the lineup just comes out as expected. Really like the Rangers here. I will disagree with you on John Gray a bit. His strikeout prop just really scares me. It's pretty heavily juiced at under 4.5. Obviously, he could get more than that, but kind of question his upside here against a sneaky good Royals lineup. If you're playing the Royals here, and I will be playing some Royals, favorite bet is obviously Bobby Witt. I obviously like Vinny. Garcia's been really awful, and I'm not sure why they continue to hit him lead off, but he would probably be like my least favorite guy from the top of the order. I think Michael Massey is a pretty good salary saver down there at 3K. And I'm likely going to be over on the Royals, not by tons, likely under on John Gray. What do we have him projected at 2%? I'll probably be higher than that. No, probably between 5 and 10 here on John Gray. Don't really want anything to do with Daniel Lynch here. So, I like the hitting in this game a lot and definitely prefer the Texas side.
Yeah, Royals doing a really good job putting the ball in play this year. Second lowest strikeout rate against right-handed pitchers on the year. So that low strikeout prop for John Gray does make some sense. Nevertheless, at 7,300 and 2% owned, I do think he is a buy.
Yeah, I'll be between 5 and 10 on him. I mean, he can still have, he can still have a good game here. It's not like he doesn't have any upside, and props aren't all like the end all be all stuff, obviously. So
right.
2% is too low.
Yeah, 100% agree on that one. Let's get to Boston and Minnesota. Another good pitcher to play here. I think Joe Ryan has been quite as sharp, these last 3 outings, 2 of which came against the White Sox, 1 against Detroit. So you would have expected him to pitch a little bit better there. I still do have quite a bit of faith in Joe Ryan, and I do like him in this matchup against the Red Sox. 9,800 on DraftKings and 10.6 on FanDuel. He's also projected to be maybe the highest owned pitcher on this slate, or close to it anyway. And we've obviously mentioned several pitchers who are going to be very low owned that we like already. So I like Joe Ryan here, but given the slate, I may end up a little bit under the field. Certainly not a fade or anything like that. It's just a kind of an ownership game when there's cheaper pitchers who are super low owned that I like. I do tend to lean that direction. And the Twins have won 12 straight games, 13 straight games, something like that. Talked about it a while on the show. They got the rally sausage going on, a team playing with a lot of confidence right now. I would expect them to continue the winning streak. It is pretty good hitting conditions in Target Field as well, around 70 degrees, some winds blowing out. Cooper Criswell on the mound for Boston, who I actually played in his last start at like 0.2% ownership, came through with 21 fantasy points. I think this is a different story, though. The main reason I liked him in his last start was the weather in Boston was like 45 degrees with the wind blowing in from right field against a bunch of lefties. It was just an impossible power spot for all the Giants hitters. I think this was the opposite for the Twins. I think these lefties, Kirilloff, Julian, Kepler, Larnach, Castro, I think they could do some damage here against Cooper Criswell, who does get barreled up pretty good by left-handed bats. I think much more than the numbers bear out. He's pitched almost all his games in like ideal pitching conditions. And in my opinion, his numbers are really not indicative of the type of pitcher he is. So I like the Twins bats quite a bit here. Obviously, the pinch hit risk with the Twins is always in play, can be frustrating, but I do think they're going to do some damage against Cooper Criswell here. Over to you, Bryce. Twins and Red Sox.
I completely agree with you on this game. I don't like Criswell at all. He has a 3 strikeout prop juiced under. I would much rather get on like a John Gray or honestly either guy in the Pittsburgh game than play any of him. So I think he might be a complete fade for me. Boston side, hitting wise, kind of just one-offs and 3-mans for me. Duran, Devers, O'Neill, obviously have upside here. So, they're not cheap. They're going to go completely unowned. I don't hate that as a 3-man stack against Joe Ryan just because nobody's going to play it. likely going to be around 35% Joe Ryan here, maybe creep up to 40 in my run. So I will likely be around the field. I do like Peralta straight up over Joe Ryan, but they're the top two pitchers on this slate, and ownership is going to reflect that. So it's kind of hard to fit them both in your team. I think that's more of like a cash game play than a tournament play. So it's not like something I'm going to be excluding or anything like that. But yeah, I probably around 35 to 40% on Joe Ryan here. As far as the Twins bats go, I mean, your guess is as good as mine as to who's going to get pinch hit for here. But, I think guys like Jeffers are super safe. I think he's one of the better catcher plays of the day. I like Correa, obviously. And then, I don't think you could ignore these lefties that could get pinch hit for either. I think it's a really solid matchup for the Twins, and I'm definitely going to be over on them today. Seeing them projected nowhere near the top of the ownership. I think people are getting a little bit scared of this pinch hit risk, but I think sometimes you just kind of have to embrace it. If I was making a single entry team, I would be more scared than like if I have 150 teams like I do as to, the pinch hit risk, because you can mix and match like the players a little bit better to try and avoid it. So like if I'm playing single entry, I'd probably like play like a Twins 3-man type of deal with the guys aren't going to get a pinch hit for. But if you're multi-entering, it's not something I would overly worry about. I think the Twins are in one of the better hitting spots of the day.
Yeah, love the matchup with Criswell to start. I will say the Boston does have two lefties in the pen, but both of them pitched yesterday, and they both pitched 2 out of the last 3 days. Cam Boozer threw 22 pitches yesterday. Decent chance he's unavailable in this game. And then the other one, Brennan Bernardino, yeah, like I said, he's pitched 2 of the last 3 days, including yesterday. My guess would be that maybe one of them pitches in this game, but neither are that great. And also, if the Twins, if you stack the Twins here and they smash Criswell and Joe Ryan is pitching well, which we do expect, and they're up 4-5-0 or something like that, my guess would be neither of the lefties pitch in this game.
I love that. Love that info.
Yeah,
makes me like the Twins 5-mans a significant amount more.
Yep. And even if they do come in, not a guarantee these guys get pinch hit for. I talk about this often. I mean, these Twins lefties that do get pinch hit for, they are like the building blocks of this offense going forward. So especially if they're winning, I think they're going to look for opportunities to at least give them some at-bats against left-handed pitching today. Seems like it could be a good spot for that, especially if Joe Ryan is shutting down this team and it looks like they kind of have the game in hand in the middle innings. So yeah, we're both high on the Twins here, and I'm less scared of the pinch hit risk in this game than I normally am. That much is for certain. White Sox and St. Louis Cardinals up next. We have one of my favorite young pitchers, Garrett Crochet. Pitched well last time out after a couple of hiccups. I do really like him in general. This Cardinals team is starting to come around a little bit bats-wise, but still I think a decent play for Crochet here. Ownership-wise, seeing him pretty low, 7 to 10% for Crochet. That feels like a buy to me at 7,600. And then he will go opposite Matthew Liberatore, who is not any good for the Cardinals. Wouldn't play him. I think we'll just get, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 innings out of him, kind of a bullpen type of day for the Cardinals. The White Sox, they were good to me yesterday. I did play them, I think, for the first time all year yesterday against Lance Lynn. I don't hate him here against Liberatore. That really the 1 through 4, Grossman, Pham, Vaughn, Eloy all looks decent to me. I know they've got a low team total, but Liberatore is a guy I want to attack in general. Not on the Cardinals myself against Crochet. I do think you could play, Contreras, Goldie, Arenado if you wanted to. Probably not going there myself, but I do think they've got a reasonable amount of upside against the lefty Crochet. What about you, Bryce? Cardinals and White Sox.
Yeah, I actually like the White Sox today, hitting wise. I think they're one of the better cheap stacks on the slate. Don't want anything to do with Liberatore. Obviously, I don't play bullpen pitchers that are going to pitch, 2 to 3 innings. So, with Eloy back in this lineup, it's really not that awful. They have some power. I don't think Tommy Pham's a bad hitter. I think stacking like 2 through 6 would be my way to go. Pham, Vaughn, Eloy, Sheets, and Paul. So I really don't hate them in this spot. I think they're going to go super under-owned. And like if you want like a Ryan Peralta like type of combo of pitching, I think it's a great 5-man to go to that not a lot of people are going to be on. Crochet, I want to be over the field on. I just think he has a ton of upside every slate. But I also want to be over on the St. Louis hitters. I think it's it's one of the better hitting environments today. So there's not a ton to like on offense on this slate, and it's kind of one of the situations where it's like if they get Crochet out of the game, the White Sox pen is atrocious. So I kind of want to be over on them, and I want to be over on Crochet. Crochet, I will likely be, 15% probably. Seeing him coming in significantly lower than that, I don't really think people are going to play him here. I think he'll come in under 10% for sure. So likely going to be over on that and St. Louis stacks and White Sox stacks. Want nothing to do with St. Louis pitching.
I think we might get a really low ownership number on Crochet, honestly. The Cardinals pretty big favorites here, which I'll be betting White Sox money line here, by the way. I just think a big mismatch pitching-wise. And like you said, right, this White Sox lineup, we've been kind of shitting on them all year, rightfully so, but they are a little bit better. Obviously getting Pham in there, Eloy, at least the top end of the lineup does look better than it did early on in the year. People talking about the weather. My guy, Kevin Roth, best meteorologist in the business, does think Detroit and New York plays. Kind of agree with that. It looks like the weather or the rain is kind of on the edge there. So I guess I'll kind of hold the same take that we had at the beginning of the show, Bryce, where if they start that game on time, I do think they're going to play. Obviously, almost 2 hours to go before game time. But a brief weather update before we get to this last game on the slate. Hit the like button if you're in here on Sunday morning watching the show. We'll do this last game, then we'll go over the fun stuff, stacks, pitchers, home runs, plays of the day after this. Freddie Peralta and Javier Assad going to duel in Wrigley. Looks like some pretty prime pitching weather in Wrigley Field. 55 degrees, wind blowing in. We know the wind impacts Wrigley Field more than any other stadium, so you do got to pay attention to that. And it's obviously part of the reason why the really low team total here, sitting at 6.5. Both teams projected below 3.5 runs. Peralta, he looked fantastic against the Rays. I don't know if you had him that day, Bryce. I was all in on him. He had the stupidest ejection. Hit Jose Siri up like down 3-0 in the count. Just got immediately tossed, no warning. It was very tilting because I think he was on his way, honestly, to a 35 or 40 point outing, only threw 66 pitches. So he's going to be fresh, ready to go in this one. And as long as he can throw strikes, like this field is going to be holding the ball in the yard pretty well. I think Peralta, like you said, rightfully the highest projected pitcher on this slate. I do like him a little bit better than Joe Ryan, myself. And then Assad, I think, is a decent option too against Milwaukee, who's kind of cooled off a little bit after a hot start. Definitely preferred Peralta over Assad, but both guys in play for me. And I'm guessing you're kind of like me. We just don't really play Wrigley bats when the wind.
I don't play Wrigley wind.
Yeah.
if it's going.
And if it's
You know,
going out and it's hot, then we go all in on the bats. But
I'm one of the bigger Wrigley Wind
me too.
like buyers or sellers, so I don't really want anything to do with hitters in this game. And I do prefer Peralta to Joe Ryan. Likely going to have around 40% Peralta. I like Assad as well. Probably going to have 25% of him. So buys on both pitchers and complete sells on the hitters. I'm not going to exclude them from my pool, but no stacks. They would strictly be like a one-off type of play for me.
Yeah, we are on the same page with Milwaukee and Chicago. Let's get to the stacks. Favorite overall stack, favorite contrarian stack. My answer is the same, I think, to both of those questions. But the Nationals, my favorite stack by a decent margin against Alek Manoah. I think hoping we'll get stolen bases. We will get stolen bases if they have guys on base. I feel very confident about that. So they're my favorite and contrarian. I'll give another stack just so I'm doing just one, and it'll be the Guardians against Griffin Canning. Pretty good hitting weather in Cleveland, and I'm not a believer in Canning at all. What about you, Bryce? Favorite stack, favorite contrarian stack?
I'm going to go favorite stack as the Rangers. Really like them today. I don't think the Nats are going to be as contrarian as we think, just because you get some cheap prices on a lot of these hitters, and people do like to pick on Manoah. So for my contrarian stack, I will go with the White Sox. I think they make a lot of these builds fit with the Rangers. So if I'm not playing any single entry teams today, but if I was, I'd play Texas 5-man and Chicago White Sox 3-man.
All right, let's do most important pitcher on the slate. Obviously, taking ownership into account. A lot of good choices here, but I got to go with Luis Severino, who is still projecting for low ownership. I'll be honest, I don't really understand why, but hey, that's fine. I'm a believer in Severino. It's not just an ownership play. Honestly, I really do expect him to have a very, very strong game here. But hey, the ownership's kind of a bonus, right? Nothing better than a play that you believe in coming in super low owned. So Luis Severino for me. What about you, Bryce?
Judging on ownership projections here, it looks like Assad and Gore project to be my biggest buys at the slate here. I think Assad's a little safer. I think Gore has a little more strikeout upside. So yeah, like them a solid amount here, and I will be buying on both, especially under 10%.
100% with you there. Let's go to a home run call. I will go with Mr. Trevor Larnach, hitting 6 today for the Twins against Cooper Criswell, who I think these Twins lefties are going to barrel this guy up all game long as he's in there anyway. So Trevor Larnach for me. What about you, Bryce? Home run call today?
Adolis Garcia.
He was high on my list too, but I figured I'd leave you one of those ranges.
Yeah, he's the highest upside hitter. I mean, him and Semien on my favorite stack, so that wasn't exactly the craziest call ever. If you want a little deeper one, Eloy Jimenez. I think he obviously has the power to do it. So I think he goes very low owned today.
Love it. Love both those guys today. Overall favorite hitter on this slate. This one, an easy one for me, Mr. C.J. Abrams. I've been high on him this whole year. Absolutely smashing it. Obviously going to run wild on Manoah if he gets a chance, and I think he's got a lot of more power upside here, and he's given credit for it. Does, like you mentioned, Bryce, it does look like these Nationals are going to come in fairly highly owned. So I'll just have to
maybe not Abrams at 6K. That's pretty expensive buy there. Like I think a lot of people will play Witt over him.
Yeah, not me. Give me C.J. Abrams as the best hitter on this slate. What about you, Bryce? Your favorite overall hitter on the day?
Well, I gave out Adolis as my home run, but he is my favorite overall hitter.
You got to give someone else.
I will go with Julio Rodriguez.
Ooh.
I think that, I kind of like Seattle a bit. And yeah, I'm just not a Hunter Brown guy. I think you get really good leverage because people are going to play him here.
All right. Awesome show, Bryce. Thanks for joining me here on Sunday morning. Thanks for watching, everybody. We do appreciate it. Almost had 400 of you in here watching the show. Good luck to everybody with DFS betting. Hopefully the Nationals run wild. And I do think all of these games are going to play today, but obviously do pay attention to the weather over the next hour and a half or so. We'll be in the Discord with our final calls on that and everything else leading up to lock. We'll be back at the normal time tomorrow, 4:45 Eastern time. Until then, good luck today for Third and Schlong. I am Draft Cheat, and we're out of here.